Christos Voskres. Welcome to Cooking with Father Bo. Today I'm going to be baking Prosphora. Prosphora is the little loaf of bread that the priest and the whole community offer to God during every divine liturgy. It's this same bread that God transforms into his own body. He really becomes present to us in this bread. So this bread is a very special thing, and baking the Prosphora should be done with love and with faith, and also with a little bit of fun. So there's 4 ingredients the Ukrainian Catholic Church uses in its Prosphora. Yes, some other kinds of churches do use other ingredients such as rose water and or sugar, but in the Ukrainian Catholic Church we use 4 ingredients. The first of them is a white flour. An all-purpose white flour works wonderfully. Also, we use traditional yeast. Yes, our bread does have yeast in it. We recognize that Christ is risen, and so the bread that becomes the body of Christ is risen as well. Roman Catholics do it a little bit differently. We also use water, pretty simple water. I get mine from the tap. And the last ingredient is just a pinch of salt, just to retard a little bit the rising process. The first thing that you need to do when you're making Prosphora is dissolve the yeast. I have a teaspoon of Fleischmann's traditional yeast. Apparently, traditional works the best. I don't know why. It's just what all the recipes tell me to do. And I'm going to put it with some warm, lukewarm water. Because if you put too hot of water, it'll kill the yeast. And if you put too cold of water, that won't activate the yeast. So add a little bit of warm water and then set it to the side so that it can start dissolving and coming to life, whatever yeast normally does. Anyway, I've already measured out 3 measures. I used a cup of white flour, and to it I'm going to be adding boiling water. So I have my kettle behind me, and I turn it on so that it will boil, and as soon as it's hot, I will pour it into my water, into my flour. There it is, it's boiling already. So we are measuring 1 cup of boiling water. And we pour the boiling water into the flour and adding just a pinch of salt. Now, obviously, boiling water is hot, so I use a wooden spoon at first to start mixing. You'll notice that it looks like there's not nearly enough water, but keep mixing. We want a pretty dense bread. You might be asking, why are we using boiling water? Well, according to several of my priest friends, when you add boiling water, it actually does something in the proteins of the flour that make it bind a little bit more. It makes it less crummy. And I trust my brother priests, so I do what they do. Once you've mixed it a while with the wooden spoon, it's probably cooled down a lot. So with clean hands, so once your hands are clean, then you can take your spoon out and start kneading it with your hands. If it's still hot, don't knead. Use your spoon. If it's hot enough that you can touch it with your hands, go for it. It's much easier to do this with your hands. And just keep mixing and mixing it. Keep mixing it until it becomes all one lump of very thick, very heavy dough. Once your dough is all dough, then you look at your yeast. If it is dissolved nicely, Then you can put it inside and start kneading it some more until the yeast is evenly distributed throughout your dough. You might want to take it outside of the bowl at this point and knead on a clean table. Yes, I've cleaned my table beforehand. Now, kneading is very important, and it's also very difficult. You need to put your whole weight into it to really knead this very heavy dough. But keep kneading. If you think you're done, do it again. The more you knead, the better it will turn out. It's a good workout. Once your dough is a nice ball of dough, then you can take a little bit of flour, sprinkle it on your table, and with a rolling pin, you can roll it so that it's flat. You don't want it too thin. It's not like pierogi dough. You want it about less than an inch thick. After you've rolled out your dough so that it's about, I got mine about 3/4 of an inch thick, you're going to want to take a Prosphora stamp. Now, Prosphora stamps come in various sizes and, well, they're almost all round. But there are smaller ones for smaller parishes or regular Sundays. There's larger ones for Lenten services or larger parishes. The Prosphora stamp, as you can see here, has the letters ICXC NIKA. The top line says Jesus Christ in abbreviated form, and the bottom line says the Conqueror. That's all in Greek. The part that the priest will cut out for the lamb, the main piece of bread that is offered, is cut out with all those letters upon it. And what you will want to do is gently put some flour on your stamp so that nothing sticks to it. Tap it off so you get most of the flour off. And then you're going to press it into your dough. And you're going to apply fairly hefty pressure on it for as long as you need to do to say 1 Our Father. Now, pulling your stamp off, you should have a nice impression that's exact mirror opposite of what you have on the bottom of your stamp. And if you're making several small loaves at the same time, you'll probably have to repeat this for each of the loaves. Once you've stamped your bread many times, it should look like this, more or less. You will have the impression of the stamp in your bread several times. Some of them turned out better than others for me, but that's okay. They'll work. Then you can take a glass or even a knife. It doesn't have to be perfectly round. And you're going to cut out, like you would with a cookie cutter, or for those of you who make pierogies all the time, like you would a can for making round pierogies. And you will come up with a lovely, simple loaf which has the seal and the stamp on it. In some places, they'll make 2 layers, only one with the stamp, the layer on top, and another layer on the bottom. 2 layers. That would represent both Christ's human and divine natures. But in our case, because my parish is small, I only use a single layer on my Prosphora. During this whole entire process, as I said before, we are focusing on how good God is. So do pray as you make Prosphora for your parish. And this is a great activity that you can do with your children too. Kids love to be able to push down the seal especially, and they can say the Our Father with you. That brings the whole family together so that they can pray together. I will be rolling out the leftovers and making a few more in a moment off video. Next, you'll take a cookie pan, just a regular pan, dust it lightly, and you'll place your Prosphora onto the pan. Then, with a moistened, clean kitchen towel, I cover them and I'll set them aside for probably an hour for them to rise. Hopefully, they'll about double in size from what they are right now. So here we are, and I'm checking on my Prosphora that we made. Ooh, and they have risen quite nicely. They're probably about 1.5 inches, which is about double what they were originally when I rolled them out. So now it's time to put them in my preheated oven, which is preheated at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And I'm going to bake them for about half an hour, but I'm going to keep my eye on them. I don't want them to burn, and I do want them to be fully cooked. So I'll be keeping my eyes on them the whole time. Ooh, they look beautiful with a nice golden color on the top. Of course, always be careful. Wear oven mitts. After you pull them out, you'll want to put them onto a baking sheet for them to cool down. The last thing you have to do after they're cooled is you take your Prosphora, which turned out very well for us, and you'd put them into individual bags. I guess you could put more than one into one bag. And that way they'll stay nice and moist until you bring them to church. If you're bringing them immediately to church, then just bring them as they are. If they're going to be used in the future, put them in the freezer in an airtight container so that they stay for a while. Before the liturgy, of course, they'll have to be thawed out before the priest can cut them up. For more information about making Prosphora for your parish, please go to our parish's website. It's dormition.eeparchy.com. God bless everyone. See you soon.